of the lockdown in effect. There is a significant police presence to keep things under control. Residents are being urged to come out for basic essentials only and continue practicing social distancing and good hygiene. Our SABC News reporter in the Western Cape, Abra Barbier, is currently in Hermanus monitoring life under lockdown. Let's then cross live to Abra there. Abra, very good afternoon to you. I know yesterday we were talking to you, you were on the streets and there was police kind of searching cars and taxis and so forth. Give us an update now on what you know about police activity and also an update of where you currently are in Hermanus.
Flo, good afternoon to you as well. There is more lockdown than life where I am right now. My colleague and video journalist Hubert Slingers and I are in the Overberg in the Western Cape, where we are just trying to get a sense of what exactly a lockdown means to people in these parts. So the Overberg consists of areas like Hermanus, where we are, Caledon, Stanford, Houston. We're going to be trying to get to as many of these little dorpies or villages as what we can to see what is going down in these particular areas. But right now in Hermanus, this is usually a bustling village. It's a major tourist attraction for the Western Cape. Loads of international tourists flock here throughout the year. But it's literally a ghost village today. There's not a soul in sight. We've had 1 or 2 security vehicles driving past. I think 2 police vehicles drove past. They just gave us a wave and a nod and carried on their way. I've not seen another human being in sight apart from those security authorities since we've been here. So this is essentially what a lockdown should be looking like. The concern, of course, is what this means for the economy of a little town like this, whose entire business, their lifeblood is based on tourism, and nothing is happening. Hotels are closed, restaurants are closed, tourism bureaus are closed, everything is closed over here. People are all in their homes. We drove through Houston, which is another village just a couple of kilometers down the road. Houston is a well-known fishing village. Everything is also, it's on lockdown over there. It's entirely, there's basically no life. The one security guard who walked past me earlier, he asked us if we are going into Zwelihle, which is the informal settlement just at the back where he comes from, and he says we will actually see a very different picture over there. He says life is continuing as normal over there. But I mean, what you mentioned with my colleague during the previous crossing about, you know, the way kids have to, how do parents deal with their kids during this time? We can't expect kids just to be stuck in a little shack for the entire day, especially in this heat. It's extremely hot where I am. So we are going to be going to Zwelihle as well, just to see how people are coping during this time. The last statistics that I received regarding figures here for the Western Cape is that we are still standing at number 2 in terms of confirmed infections. It was just around 300. I am getting an update on that at about 2 o'clock. Somebody's going to be sending me, or the province will be sending me, the latest update in terms of the breakdown of where exactly the confirmed infections are in the Western Cape. Here in the Overberg, we've last heard that there were 7 confirmed infections. We don't know where in the Overberg, but this would obviously refer to all the towns that I mentioned earlier. Flo?
Now, Abra, I'm sure you've had some conversations, whether it is with people around you, you know, colleagues and so forth. What really is the attitude in terms of the lockdown in the Western Cape? And as you rightly mentioned, the second highest numbers in the country of the coronavirus. What are people really saying about all of this? Is there starting to be some sort of an understanding as to why this is essential and why, you know, this lockdown has to happen? Or are there still sort of questions? I remember yesterday you were saying some people were sort of oblivious to what's happening. But what are the general public really saying?
Flo, it's such a difficult question to answer, really, because in as much as I believe government is doing everything that it can do, during this time. These are very uncharted waters we find ourselves in. We've never experienced anything like this. So yes, government will face a lot of critique during this time. You're doing this wrong, they're doing that wrong, but we've never been here before. So we need to navigate through this together. Where people have advice for government. Yesterday I spoke to JP Smith of the City of Cape Town, the MACO member for safety and security, and just within his cluster he had come up with some gaps in the regulations, and he intends to speak to government about that, to national government about that, to ask them to look into those gaps and to strengthen it. And I think that was actually a good idea on his part, to identify the gaps, and he's a DA politician.
Yeah.
So I think we are really in uncharted territory. We really just need to take hands on this and try to do as much as we can to make this as smooth a time for all of us. I mean, I keep saying it's not about you and me, it's about people who have underlying illnesses, the young, the very young, the elderly. But I mean, even saying the very young and the elderly, I mean, we heard of the 48-year-old, the woman from the Western Cape. She was 48 years old and she succumbed to corona. So I think everybody's really just confused about how to feel about this right now. It's very, very early days. It's only day 3. It's very early days. We're really going to have to find our feet going forward. I mean, if I can make this personal, Hubert, my colleague, he hasn't seen his family in a while, and he's got a little daughter, and he's desperate when he gets some time off next week to go and see his little girl and his wife. And I've been telling him, you can't do that. You first need to make sure that you are okay. So this is a very, very rough time for everybody, for loads of people who are not able to have access to their family. I mean, that's just this message that I'm getting on social media. People are really sad about not being able to access their family. I can't go see my dad. My dad is ill. It's not safe for me to be around my father. I mean, and there are so many other stories like this.
Yeah.
So it's a really difficult time for all of us, and we just, I don't know if pressing through is even the right word the right phrase to use, or the right attitude to have, but there is a bigger picture, and I don't know. Flo, I don't know what the answer is to your question.
All right, Abra, thank you so much for also giving us that personal touch as well. I mean, I think people can tend to forget that, you know, behind those cameras and those mics, at the end of the day, we are human and have this very same concerns that they do. Thank you, Abra, speaking to us there from Hermanus in the Western Cape. And of course, we crossed through here yesterday, and there were a number of roadblocks that were taking place in the Western Cape, where you could see authorities checking cars, checking vehicles, making sure that you know, people are actually adhering to the rules that have been set for this 21-day lockdown. I do see where she is now. It's relatively empty, but of course, as she did mention, she is going to go into the informal settlements, and so we will catch up with her later on, just to see what's happening in those informal settlements. And no doubt it will be similar to what Makgaketla is experiencing in Alexandra in the north of Johannesburg, where those visuals we brought you show a completely different story to what we're seeing in sort of the affluent areas, if you'd like to put it that way. But also, Abra just telling us on her personal side, you know, how this is affecting her. And of course, do contact us, do touch base with us at SABC News. You can of course tweet us and tell us how, you know, this is all affecting you personally as well. Well, about